Today on the Texas Tribune Weekend Insider. It's Texas political convention time, but what happens at the events and do the parties still need them? How are the Texas Department of Transportation's math skills? A few years ago, the agency announced a $1 billion accounting goof. This year, it announced it has an extra $2 billion for road projects. Will the new windfall limit their chances to get additional funding from lawmakers next year?
The Texas Republican Convention is one of the largest conventions there is. It's bigger than the national convention in terms of the number of people. So they get, 18,000 people who are, anything from normal looking to people with sequined red, white, and blue hats on, and, they're kind of milling around. And there's this sort of party atmosphere to it, but it's also the place where they kind of check in, they do their platform, they do their statement of, this is our statement of where the party is, statement of what the party ought to do. Importantly, this is where a lot of the grassroots things that kind of become manifest during the legislative session begin. So the party activists on both sides who are gathering this week will be putting together ideas, some of which you'll see in the form of legislation when the legislature comes in January. It's kind of a pep rally. It's, it's a moneymaker for the parties if they do it right. They sell booths, they've got this big convention, they've got this thing. It's a way to gather your people together, and they sort of can work on their relationships, network, and all of those kinds of things. So it's got that aspect to it, but it doesn't do what it was originally set up to do. This was originally set up to allow the parties to choose the nominees they were going to send into general elections, and that's clearly not what they do anymore. And if you were setting up political parties today with current technology, you probably wouldn't set up conventions. But they set them up a long time ago, and the conventions are a vestige of that.
Back in March, the Texas Department of Transportation announced it had an extra $2 billion to spend on transportation projects around the state. This is money that no one really knew was coming, and it surprised a lot of people. And it came from a few different sources, but it wasn't an accounting error or anything like that. But it did remind some people of what happened a few years ago when TXDOT did have an accounting error and had to admit that it had $1 billion less than it thought. Overall, it is good that TXDOT had this extra $2 billion to spend. Some of it came from federal funding that they hadn't expected to receive. Some of it was just they refinanced some of their debt and can now borrow more. And then the rest of it was just some projects came in costing less than they had expected. So overall, this was more just they managed their money well and got $2 billion extra out of it. The problem is the perception issue. A lot of transportation advocates around the state kind of groaned when they heard that TXDOT was announcing this $2 billion extra money because they're trying to convince the legislature next year to increase funding for transportation. And it's hard to do that when TXDOT is going around saying, oh, we just found an extra $2 billion. It kind of creates this perception that they either don't know where all their funding is or where they're at, or that if they're short from the state, they can find the money elsewhere. In the next session, there's going to be a lot of different groups fighting for very little money, and transportation advocates want to be a part of that discussion, and they're hoping this doesn't hurt them too much.